Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sporting Fan Podcast. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I'll be speaking about something that's been in the media for a couple of weeks now, and that is a conflict between the NRL and the New South Wales state government. The argument that they're having at the moment, it seems like a bit of a strange fight to pick for the NRL, because in my opinion there are better battles to pick than this one. The story basically is that a little while back there were negotiations going on around stadiums, and the New South Wales government basically agreed to put money into either redeveloping or refurbishing stadiums around Sydney. From memory, it was going to be the stadium at Penrith, Leichhardt, Brookvale and Cronulla, which would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. But now the government is saying, with the exception of the new Penrith Stadium, you're not getting the money for the stadiums anymore. It's going to the flood victims. And basically the NRL are quite pissed off about it. They've got the shits over it. And they're saying they're going to take the grand final to Queensland. Honestly, I think the NRL have completely misread the situation, and they really don't have many supporters backing them on this one. My read on the situation is that the NRL tried to be opportunistic here, because basically the state government, they're not really popular at the moment according to the polls, and they try to seize on that by angering the supporters of these clubs, basically saying that the state government was going to give you a refurbished stadium. They were going to give you a better stadium, and and then now they're saying that they're not, and you deserve better than that. But it has kind of backfired on them, because fans have said, basically fans are saying, it would be nice to have a refurbished stadium where had the state-of-the-art facilities, and, we would like that, but the money can be better used elsewhere. We're only just coming out of a pandemic, which really is still ongoing. But, of course, we've gone back to normal now, but, the money can be used, better, especially, if the government is actually true to the word, which who really knows if they are, but they said that the money is going to the flood victims, and people are saying, if it's going there, that's a lot better use of money than building stadiums around Sydney. Like, I understand that the Roosters are getting a new stadium, and people will say, well, your team is getting a new stadium, why shouldn't everybody else, because you got your thing, you all bugger everyone else. I'm like, my answer to that is, Allianz Stadium shouldn't have been knocked down to begin with. Like, no one was asking for Allianz Stadium to be redeveloped, including Rooster supporters. And personally, I think that, with the new stadium, it should have been, I think the original plans were supposed to be 65. If they were going to knock down Allianz, they should have kept it at 60. They should have made it a bigger capacity than keeping it the same. From images that I've seen, it does look like it's a lot better than the old one, but there was nothing wrong with the old stadium. The state government just tried to justify it, saying that the old stadium wasn't up to the FIDE codes, and because of their engineering, it would be basically impossible to refurbish it. So therefore, it needed to be pulled down and rebuilt. Personally, I think it is just them playing politics, trying to justify something that was a bit, very unpopular at the time. And it's really annoyed a lot of fans of the teams that played there, which were across the coast. It was obviously the Roosters in the NRL, the Waratahs in rugby union. It was also Sydney FC, West Tigers occasionally played there again, another NRL team. So there was obviously internationals that were played there. So in league, union, and soccer. So a lot of people weren't too. A lot of people said that it shouldn't have been pulled down. It has been quite annoying because I can tell you, for the games of the SCG, I know a few people have liked it, but I can tell you, for me and a lot of people I know, they don't like it. It's a rubbish stadium to watch rugby league. Look, don't get me wrong, I love watching cricket at the cricket ground, but I don't like watching rugby league or rugby in general at the cricket ground. There's a reason why it's called the Sydney Cricket Ground. It's because they're there to play cricket, not rugby. So, I much prefer the watching cricket there, but I hate watching rugby league there. And because you're just miles... The reason why I don't like it is because you're miles away from the game. But, of course, that's just a side note. Getting a bit away from the topic here. The other stadiums that are getting a revamp, has anyone heard as to really why they need to be done? Penrith is New South Wales government, I believe, has committed to Penrith, the new Penrith Stadium. I think that's called Bluebet or whatever it's called now. They have committed to that, but they're not committed to the ground at Cronulla, which is Shark Park, Brookvale Oval, and Leichhardt Oval, which they intended to, that they were going to be refurbished. Has anyone actually heard why they need to be, redeveloped or refurbished? The seating probably could be a bit better at... I haven't been to games at Shark Park or Brookvale, but I can tell you the seating at Leichhardt could be a little bit better. I have been to a couple of games at Leichhardt, and the seating isn't great, but it's not terrible. It's not. I don't think it really needs to have. I think they were going to commit between $50 and $100 million. I don't think it needs that much money spent on it, to be honest. They put proper seating in, you could probably do that for a few $1 million, but sure as hell not 50 to 100. But yeah, and honestly, I think I don't think it's a great look for the state government. I know they're probably doing the reason why they're doing it to the flood victims is simply because they're trying to play politics and it went over a few votes because they think that at federal level the coalition got routed pretty comprehensively. They lost about 20 or 30 seats or whatever, and the state government doesn't want to go the same way. So they're probably playing a little bit of politics, saying look, we're not going to build these stadiums. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're going to put the money to the flood victims and making their lives better rather than building stadiums. Because honestly, people still can't get into their homes in the floods from earlier this year. They were in April, March, and even some of the floods before that. So I think the NRL is a little bit off the mark here. I think they're really barking up the wrong. I really think they're really fighting a losing battle here. I think they're not gonna win any supporters over by doing this, because people think they're just I think that, like I said, I think they were trying to get a cheap victory, and it's really backfired on them. And the other thing that a lot of people are saying, they're saying oh, you're going to take it to Queensland. What's that going to do? Honestly, I think he's used this threat a few times. That I think when they first tried to when they had the stadium, before this is pre-COVID, I remember that they were having arguments over stadiums back then, and they were threatening to take it. And they had a better argument back then because it was talk that they were going to tear down the Olympic Stadium, and redevelop it. And I could understand that argument that they were going to take it to Brisbane because they reduced the stadium size from with the Allianz Stadium. They were going to the original plan was going to be 65, and then they made it only get to 45, and then they were going to make it the new Olympic Stadium 72. So with the 45,000 capacity stadium, they'll moving it to Brisbane. They could have that while the Olympic Stadium was being redeveloped. They got that extra 7,000 seating. But now that that's been scrapped, they've got Suncorp's biggest stadium is Suncorp is the biggest stadium in Queensland. So I don't think Peter V'landys has really thought this through because, for starters, does Peter V'landys really think that the Queensland government is really going to pay for the revamped stadiums in Sydney? Because, the way he's carrying on, I think he honestly believes that that's what they're going to do. I can tell you right now what the Queensland government is going to do if he tries to do that. They're going to tell him to fuck off, laugh him out of the room, and bloody chase him all the way back to frickin' Sydney and say, get out of my fucking state. That's exactly what they're going to say. And they're like, that ain't happening. They're just not going to do it. And there's two other things with this, but Peter V'landys hasn't thought through. That the first is the crowd, which I just brought up, the crowd capacity. And the other thing is, the grand final is less than 2 months away. With the crowd capacity, the Olympic Stadium can hold in Sydney can hold 83,000 people, whereas the biggest stadium in Queensland, Suncorp, can only hold 52,500. What a lot of people don't realise with the finals, including all final games, including the grand final, is that all ticket sales go to the NRL, not the clubs involved. Yes, the clubs get prize money with it, but it's nowhere near the ticket sales generated. With the grand final potentially being in Brisbane, it will mean the NRL needs to consider its options because, that's 30,000 less tickets that they're going to sell. So, let's just say, for argument's sake, the average ticket price is $100. It's actually a lot more than that, but for argument's sake, let's say it's $100, right? That's over $3 million in ticket sales that the NRL needs to find from somewhere else, or they need to forgo it. They need to forgo that money. If they want to keep the revenue, there's only really two options that they've got. They either raise the ticket prices or get it from the Queensland state government, which will both be unpopular options for their own reasons. Let's put it from the fans' perspective. If they raise the price to take it to Queensland, for many fans, it's already hard enough to get tickets to the grand final because of the cost of it. Now, if the NRL says that you have to dig out even more money for it, just for the tickets, then you have to. But not only that, you have to pay for airfares. You have to pay for accommodation. You had to pay for travel. Extra cost in travel to and from the ground. If you're a family of four, for example, Penrith, let's say for example, Penrith at the top of the table, people that in the Penrith area, they're working class families, and they're quite a lot of them don't have massive salaries where they can pay for all this, because quite frankly, for a family of four, it could literally cost them over $1,000. By the time they pay for accommodation and all the other things, food costs, airfares, and all that, because you'll be eating out and that. It's going to cost them over $1,000 for everything, and that puts it out of reach for a lot of fans. Like, if you're just going to the game in Sydney, like, for those people, it's struggling, but they could save up for the year, saying like, oh yeah, we're going to get tickets to the grand final, and it may cost us $350 or $400. We'll get the cheapest tickets available, cost us $400, but I could save $400. Saying to them last minute, oh yeah, we're going to more than double it, it's going to piss them off, because for a lot of people, going to the grand final is a once in a lifetime thing, or once in a 10 or 20 year thing for them. They don't, people don't, yes, there are people that go to the grand final every year, but that's a small number of people that go every year. Even if their team is always in contention for the grand final. And even if they don't put the price up and the Queensland government puts some money up, people will say I know people will say, oh, it's the government, it's nothing for them. But there's a couple of problems with that. Like, for starters, the point I made a second ago is that that still doesn't reduce the cost for the everyday supporter. And they're still going to have to fork out over $1,000 to go up to Queensland if it's a family of four. There's still that argument. Like, it just means it's slightly less in ticket prices. And with the government, it still needs to pull, find that money from somewhere. They'll probably have to either cut something in funding, or they had to raise, put more money on, they had to put another tax on or raise taxes in something. Both those are going to be unpopular. Because you might have to cut it from grassroots sports project or education or health or whatever to find the money. And, people will go, oh, it might pay for its, it'll probably pay for itself because you're gonna have all these people traveling to Brisbane, and, they're coming up on holidays, you're gonna be spending, if they're, if they're the young people, people about my age or younger, people under 30 that don't have families, I'm 26, but 30 and under, the people that don't have families, they're going to be spending a lot, they're going to be going to pubs, they're going to going out, and people are that will make up the $3 million that, for the Queensland government. And it's just hang on, no, that's where you're also wrong. Because it's not $3 million that they're dishing out. That's $3 million on top of whatever New South Wales is spending. So the New South Wales is paying, New South Wales has a deal with the NRL where they're paying them to host the NRL Grand Final every single year. Now, so that means they have to dish out $3 million on top of whatever New South Wales is paying, which is going to be several $1 million a year. It could be $5. I don't know how much the deal is, but it could be $5 million, $10 million, potentially even more to host it. So it's $3 million plus whatever that cost is. So you just think, are you really going to make it up in that? Are you going to make up those millions of dollars in one weekend? It's not the same as Magic Round where you have all 8 clubs over 3 days. It's not the same as that, You're not going to have, 200,000 people or whatever it is going to games or 150,000 people going over the 3 days to Suncorp. You're not going to have that with the grand final because it's one day. People will probably fly up the Sunday morning and or they might fly out the Saturday night and fly out first thing Monday morning. People aren't going to be there the whole weekend like they are on Magic Round. And they're not going to spend like they will on Magic Round. The grand final is completely different. And, that's where people, people don't realise, and they're not going to really. I don't reckon Queensland are going to dish out that kind of money for the grand final, especially if it's only going to be 1 year. Like, I know Queensland hosted it last year, but I think this year is going to be slightly different, and personally, I can't see it happening. Like, I know with COVID, it was a bit different. Times are different. Like, they had the whole competition up there, and as a matter of good faith by the NRL saying, like, thanks for letting us stay up here for the whole year, letting our competition go on. We're going to let you coach the grand final. But this grand final is different. Like, I think they're off the mark here, the NRL. They're not. They didn't really see this backlash coming. They thought they could score a cheap victory. Get what they try to have a trial by media, and they lost simply. A lot of things are usually is winners and it's not as black and white as winners and losers, and because there's always a grey area. There's usually a grey area, but in this one is a pretty simple winner, and there's this pretty simple winner and loser in this, and I know there are people that will say, oh yes, the state government should pay for this and all that, but I can tell you, I'd say 95 to 99% of people. And it won't matter if you're a Labour supporter or a coalition supporter or somewhere in the middle where, you're an independent, where you're a swing voter. I think majority of people will be backing the government on this rather than the NRL. And the NRL have really shot itself in the foot here. And the NRL would be better off just shutting up, saying, like, we still want the refurbished stadiums, but can we get one now, one in 3 years' time, and now another one in 5 years' time, rather than having all three happen at once? Because the other thing that that's the other thing the NRL hasn't really thought through is, like, yeah, sure, Cronulla can play probably down in Kogarah or something, or Wollongong, but, and then the West Tigers can probably play at Campbelltown, but where's Manly going to play? They're going to play at North Sydney or something? Like, we already saw with the Northern Eagles, like, that didn't really work out too well, and, not many Manly supporters, you're going to get a certain percentage that are going to go down to North Sydney Oval or something, but, you're not going to get many that are going to travel down from Manly to... And especially if it's on a Thursday night or a Friday night. Like, if it's on a Thursday or a Friday night, people got work the next day, and yeah, sure, there people go, oh yeah, well, you're on your way home through North Sydney, but... there's a big difference between getting home at 7:30 and getting home at 10:30, 11. Like, especially when you got work at 9 o'clock, or if you're a tradesman having work at 7 o'clock the next morning. There's big difference in getting back that late. And what if you have a family? Like, with a family, it's that little bit harder to get there. And also, it's the same with Cronulla, like going up to Kogarah is that little bit, it's a lot easier to get to bloody Shark Park than going to going to Kogarah or Wollongong. Like, it is quite a bit of a drive, and having all three stadiums redeveloped at the same time, and then you have Penrith, so you're gonna, like, I don't really think the NRL has really thought this through, like thinking, oh, well, let's have 4 stadiums built at the 4 teams' home grounds built at the same time. Like, there's going to be a lot of scheduling problems with this. And I think the NRL just going, well, you said this. It's just like, well, have you actually thought about it? Like, you need to think about it. think about what you're actually saying here, and like be like it's one of those situations. Be careful what you actually wish for, because in many ways, like even if the money wasn't going to flood victims, and the government just says, it said, fuck you, you're not getting the money, we're not building new stadiums. Like, I'm sick of your fucking bullshit. Like, fuck off, Peter. If they just said that, like, even if they said that, it's still gonna like piss off fans, because 4 clubs worth of fans, because they have to go to Penrith will have to probably they'll probably be playing at either the Olympic Stadium or Combank at Parramatta. And then you have I don't know, and then you have the other 2 playing at wherever they're gonna bloody be playing at. And I just think Volandis is, I think, trying to use a standover tactic here, and doesn't quite understand what he's asking for, and I think it's going to blow up in his face, it already has blown up in his face, but I think it's going to blow up in his face a lot worse if he doesn't just back off and say, okay, take the hit, say, I fucked up, I'm sorry, I was out of line, we'll we'll look at this negotiations in a few years' time. Because you have to look, like, for example, which other city has these kind of grounds, right? Like, for example, Victoria just said to the AFL, we're having 2 stadiums, right? We're going to have Marvel, or whatever the hell they call it these days. It bloody goes through name changes bloody more times than you bloody change your underwear. But whatever that's called now, the old Dockland Stadium, and they had the MCG, which Dockland Stadium is now owned by the AFL. They purchased it. I believe they purchased it. I don't know if they still do, but they did own it. And the MCG, and and a lot of these smaller grounds were shut down and sold off. And the Victorian government just said, deal with it. And if you don't like it, leave. And what, in the AFL, people, obviously would have jumped up and down and said, this is bullshit, you can't be doing this, this is so unfair, yada, yada, yada. But, what was the AFL going to do? We're going to go, we're going to move all our teams to frickin' New South Wales? Like, they don't have the support here. And even if they frickin' did, you really, like, there's not the AFL grounds here. Do you think they're going to, they're going to go, we're going to move to Adelaide, or we're going to move to Perth? Like, there's not the populations there, and they wouldn't, and even if they did, they wouldn't want them anyway. Like, they're like, they don't have the population to host those kind of, that many teams. That's why, teams bloody relocated in the first place, because the VFL wanted to expand, but they realised they're like, we got so many bloody teams in Melbourne that if, they're like, we can either bring new teams in or we relocate them. And, they relocated a few teams, but, they obviously couldn't relocate every single team. They needed, for example, South Melbourne came to Sydney, and I believe Brisbane was Fitzroy, I believe, if I'm right in saying that. I could be wrong, and I know AFL fans will bloody destroy me on that, but the AFL, the Victorian government said, you either fucking deal with it or you go elsewhere. And because the AFL knew that they couldn't go elsewhere, they just dealt with it. And the state government should do the same. Because, quite frankly, if I was New South Wales, I'd call their bluff, because they try to use, the NRL tries to use this as a bargaining chip. And the New South Wales government always backs down. But this time the New South Wales government has said, you know what? You want to leave? Go. Like, we ain't going to stop you. But, that's what they should be saying to him. Because that's what I'd be. I'd be like, you know what? Fuck off. Leave. I'm sick of your bullshit. I don't want to bloody keep hearing how how your multi-billion-dollar organisation is so freaking hard done by when you're getting so much money from us. Like, if we are so hard done by, leave. Go to Queensland. Go to Melbourne. Go to Victoria. I don't care. But, you just have to realise that, more than half your teams are here in Sydney. Then you've also got Newcastle. You've also got, Canberra, which is technically not New South Wales or the ACT. But it's a lot easier for someone from Canberra to get to Sydney than it is to get to Brisbane. And I'll be like, what if they, those teams make the grand final? Like, there's only 3 teams in Queensland, and when was the last time any of them played in a grand final? What, 2015 or whatever the hell it was? Like, when the Cowboys beat Brisbane. Like, I don't think, none of the Queensland teams played in the grand final since. So it's just like, what, you're going to piss off all your supporters? There nearly always is a Sydney team in. Congratulations, you're going to piss off, 13 clubs worth of supporters because you got a little hissy fit over stadiums. Like, don't like it, leave. That's what I would say. Cool their bluff, and then you'll quickly see that they'll have the tail between their legs, and they'll be crawling back to the state government and said, "We're sorry." And it wouldn't matter if it's news. And wouldn't care if it was bloody Labor or Liberal. That's in power. But that's what I would say to them. I'd say to them, "Don't like it, leave. You can leave." Because because these companies think they can bully them, and then the government says, "Well, we don't need you. You need us as much as we need you," and you'll piss off. You'll get a lot of bad will from your supporters, and people won't like you for it, and they won't forgive you for it, and they won't. And just because, even if you do come back, they might not come back to New South Wales. Your fans might not come back, and you're going to lose a lot of money if you do it. And it'll cost you a lot more money than what it's worth. That's just my opinion. I'm interested to hear what you think. I always like to hear if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, if you partially agree. I'd always like to hear what you think. Get back to me, and and then we can. Until next time, have a good one.